Well, hey, welcome back. Good to be with everybody again. Matt, welcome back. Where you been all my life, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. We missed you last week. I think everybody was punished with just me, and I'm sure everybody's happy to see you again. So welcome home, and glad you guys had a safe trip.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be back.
Yeah. Uh, so last week when Matt was gone and it was just me, we were talking a little bit about comfort zone and how do we get pulled into our comfort zone and sometimes trapped in our comfort zone. And thank you for those who reached out, shared encouraging messages with me, like, needed to hear that, might be stuck there myself. Great message for today. Shared this with a colleague. Those are the types of things that excite us and keep us going. So thank you for that feedback. And as always, if there's anything we can help you with and anything that you actually want to hear more about, please submit those to us so we can talk about those in the episodes ahead. But based on some of that feedback, Matt and I thought it might be good to examine comfort zone a little more deeply today. Talk a little bit about some of the warning signs you might see when you're in the comfort zone and things we might hear and catch ourselves as we say as we move through the comfort zone. So, Matt, you hear anything about comfort zone over the past week, and you examined anybody or work with anybody who's finding themselves there?
Well, Bill, I think anybody we probably didn't hear from should be a warning sign because they're probably still in their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And, I think there are a lot of areas where it's easy for salespeople and people in general to get into their comfort zone. So, what I really wanted to do today is just start out. I love challenges and dig a little deeper in the various areas where we should be looking and understanding first and foremost where is our comfort zone. Before we look to correct it, I think as salespeople there are so many facets that we can analyze. For
Mm.
instance, where's our comfort zone in questioning? Questioning is our best tool. So where is it in questioning that we're comfortable? And in what type of sales process are we comfortable? Is it when the person sitting across from us is like us? Maybe has the same demeanor, went to the same high school, or likes the same things. We're building rapport. Are we comfortable when everything's going great in a meeting? And so we need to start thinking of in questions, in process. What types of meetings are we comfortable with? What types of prospects are we comfortable with? Um, what type of work that we do are we comfortable with on
Mhm.
any given day? Do we get comfortable in that busy work? Do we get comfortable in checking boxes and saying, "Oh man, I can't possibly prospect because I have all of this to do, and if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Or I can do
Mhm.
it so much faster than that other person." So those are just a few examples to dig a little bit deeper than the great session you had last week of there are multiple facets and areas where we need to evaluate where are we comfortable.
Yeah. You made a comment about types of meetings, and I think you meant meetings that go well without objections, or meetings that, where people are saying good things and we're not dealing with challenges, or we're
Yep.
not. And then do we become uncomfortable when somebody challenges us and asks us a very direct question that might, which, you and I kind of love, right? Because usually when somebody's asking you a very direct, difficult question, it's an opportunity to respond with a powerful question that
Mhm.
helps demonstrate value, right? Where I think we see too many salespeople when they're challenged and somebody asks them something direct and something difficult, they tend to go into defense mode. And oh no, how am I going to defend pricing, or how am I going to defend? How am I going to overcome this objection, this challenge? And those are the moments when we should actually get excited because they allow us to demonstrate capability, expertise, and value, right? So that's one thing to be mindful of: is are you comfortable without being challenged? Are you comfortable when people are just saying nice things, but we don't necessarily close the work, we don't necessarily advance those cycles, we don't necessarily get things moving in the right direction and uncover reasons why somebody would buy, more importantly why they won't buy, and understand where we truly stand in the relationship.
Yeah, and one other thing, Bill, very timely with the conversation, that we had. this week was, are we comfortable as salespeople in the technical? Because I think there's a lot of individuals that stay on the technical side, whether it's measuring, whether it's, I think the example was looking at the price of oil rather than going out and prospecting in the financial industry.
Right.
Are,
And
are
why
you,
is that, Matt? We talked about that and we learned we were having a conversation about somebody in the financial services industry who might not have a full pipeline. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'm very technical. I have to look at the markets. I have to look at this." And after some examination, he came to realize that the reason he's so technical is because the markets, when he's looking on the reports, when he's looking at technical data, when he's looking at the details, that can't say no, right? The price of oil futures can't say no to him, where an individual who you pick up the phone and call might, and it becomes easier to find to fall into the comfort zone of being a technical expert than actually having to be a prospector.
Absolutely. So, are we leaning on the technical? Or are we leaning on knowledge, product knowledge, or industry knowledge as a comfort zone, as a comfort blanket? And it seems, sort of like an oxymoron. We're not supposed to talk about our product, or we're not supposed to be an expert. Not at all what we're saying. But do we use that instead of asking direct questions? Do we go back to the well there instead of driving towards clarity of clear next steps, mutual expectations, uncovering the core principle of our process, FANT, financial impact, authority, need, timeline? Are we doing that instead of getting PDRs, proposal draft reviews, which we believe in? So, I think there just are a ton of facets that, if nothing else, we did a continuation of comfort zone to challenge you to look at, where is your comfort zone? Where am I just being, rather than being more intentional? Because there's importance to that.
Yeah, and I think one of the areas we see a lot of people fall into a comfort zone and waste time, because that's one of the hallmarks of the comfort zone is we waste time. One of the areas we see that is on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is it's easy to spend a lot of time on LinkedIn and lie to ourselves about, oh, I'm prospecting, or I'm doing important work. I'm building doing marketing, and you could say it's marketing work. And by the way, the salespeople, we should be doing sales work, not as much marketing work. But it's easy to confuse and blur the lines between the two. But even if you are on LinkedIn, are you being creative, right? Are you doing the right activities, or are you just hanging out? And are we creating content, or are we consuming content? And there's a difference. And if we're creating content, and you're spending time on LinkedIn to enhance your brand, enhance your reach, enhance your scope, to bring knowledge into the marketplace, to become a content creator and someone seen as an expert, great. Or are you just consuming content that others have produced and lying to ourselves about being present, lying to ourselves about being there and being productive? It's a fine line, right? But it's also a rabbit hole. And you start going down that rabbit hole and you can lose hours. And when are you doing it? That's the other great lies. When are you on LinkedIn? We find very successful people aren't spending a lot of time on LinkedIn in the middle of the day. You know why? They're doing revenue producing activities on revenue producing time, right? And when in the middle of our revenue producing day, we shouldn't be consuming content on social media.
hmm Another area to take a look at that died a bit during the pandemic was, belly to belly in person, events, let's just call it, whether it's, fundraisers or community events or gatherings. I'm really starting to see those come back. So are we just attending and lying to ourselves and saying, oh, got a great meal. That was great business development. Or are we
Hmm.
being intentional there? Are we intentionally seeking out and developing relationships? And, not that we have to get business from every place that we go, but are we developing relationships? Are we having conversations? Are we going in and being intentional? It's okay to go to those and say, I want to make the most of this. I'm not saying I'm going to go get business, because we know those net takers versus net givers. But why
Hmm.
can't we say, I want to get to know one person at a deeper level, and that will be a great night. Whether it's business, great, or if it's just understanding more about one person in the community, awesome. But it's time well spent rather than just saying, all right, here we go, another one. I hope they have good drinks tonight.
Yeah. Matt, if you're anything like me, you've been in a lot of these where you're trying to think about what time I'm getting out and how I head for the door as you're walking in,
Hmm.
right? And that means we're really not present, and we maybe shouldn't be wasting our time because we're not giving of ourselves. We're not being honest with ourselves about why we're there, and we're probably not going to enter into too many meaningful, deep, and dignified conversations with the other, which means we're wasting other people's time. The other place we see people falling into a comfort zone is with closing business and with just the comfort of a pipeline and sales cycles that are stalled. That becomes a norm for many people. And we find that a lot of people are really comfortable holding on to bloated pipelines with things not moving through them because it's a lot better than having no pipeline. So when I have a bloated pipeline and I have to be honest with myself about where things are, it might be uglier than I need it to be, and I might have to come to that ugly realization that I don't have enough to sustain me. I don't have enough to deliver on the promises that I've made to the business. Sometimes we call that quota. So what's that mean, right? What's that mean? So we find ourselves some warning signs of when we're comfortable with a bloated pipeline or comfortable with not closing business is when we're saying things like, "Oh, they need time to think it over." Right? So you're looking into your pipeline. There's somebody there that we say the reason we haven't closed them is because they need time to think it over, versus saying something like, I failed to create urgency. Or we might say they don't have budget. When we might really, maybe what we really should be saying is, I failed to demonstrate value. And those are when we can be honest with ourselves, is when we're making those I statements, I failed to statements, versus they need, they want, they are. When we're focusing the time on them to get to a decision, when we're focusing on their actions, because why is that easy to do? We don't control their actions. We're not responsible for their actions. Where if I say something like, I failed to, who's responsible for that? Right? Me. And Matt, I know you love extreme ownership. You are not somebody that likes to make excuses. You're not somebody that likes to push off on others. Yet how often do we hear people making those type of excuses about others versus capturing that ownership and saying what we failed to do, meaning what we then need to do to move something forward?
Yeah, and a statement that I hear a lot based on that principle, which I thought was great the way you laid it out. I understand it, I get it, but I'm different. My
Hmm.
sales cycles are different. Yeah, but
Hmm.
this region's different. But my clients are different.
Hmm.
Yeah, I get what they're selling over there, but um, my product's different. Competition's different. So a big warning sign to me is if you're saying yeah, but enter anything into it, you're probably either making excuses or you need to dig a little bit deeper and understand your comfort zone and work to get out of it. If you're
Hmm.
saying I get it, but I'm different, that's a problem. Whether it's in questioning, whether it's in pipeline, whether it's in the interactions, prospects, meetings, you name it. If we're saying we're different, um, 99% of the time, it's probably not the case. I think we're probably in our comfort zone. But the question I
Hmm.
have for you, Bill, we're talking about the warning signs. We're talking about all the areas where we have a comfort zone, and it's our job to figure out what that baseline is. So now that we figured it out, where do we go from here? How do we get out of our comfort zone? How do we push and still be, maybe not disingenuous, still be ourselves, that fine balance of doing so.
Yeah, uh, it comes down to action and ownership, right? So if we want next Tuesday to look different than this Tuesday morning, what are we going to do differently? And Matt and I are big fans of the journal, so we would say go to the journal and first capture in your personal life, in your professional life, in your faith life, in your health, what aspect of your life, or all aspects of your life, do you find yourself slipping into the comfort zone, and what's that look like for you? And then define what the actions would look like if you weren't, right? So if you find yourself in the comfort zone from a prospecting standpoint. You're like, oh, I'm too busy to prospect. By the way, if you didn't deliver like 400% of quota in your last quote quarter or year, you're not too busy to prospect. So, if you find yourself saying things like, I'm too busy to prospect, or I'm too busy to have a date with my spouse, or I'm too busy for friends, or I'm too busy to pray, or I'm too busy to work out. When you find yourself making those statements of the things you're too busy to do that you need to do to live the life you want to live, that's a prime example of when you might be in a comfort zone because you're in a busy zone. So go to the journal, identify those activities that are holding you back from the life you deserve and the life you want to live, and then start to define what that future state looks like. What does success in each of those areas look like? If I were at the top of my prospecting game, what would I be doing? If I were at the top of my delivery and closing game, what would I be doing differently? Would I be asking those one thing questions? What's the one thing that would hold you back from working with us? What's the one reason you would say no? Define those things, what that good future state looks like. If your relationships were as good as they can be, what would that look like, right? If we were going to put you on trial for being a good friend, what evidence would we have to prosecute you? If we were going to put you on trial for being a great spouse, what evidence would there be to prosecute you? So start defining the things you're doing now that are getting in the way, those activities that are getting in the way from the great activities, and then define what the right state looks like, a good future state for you that is when your life is what you know it can be and it should be. And I think that's when you start to break free from your comfort zone. So again, if you want next Tuesday to look any different than this Tuesday morning when you woke up, do something about it. If you don't, well, just, maybe click like on YouTube or whatever it is. And we appreciate that. And we'll see you again next Tuesday to talk about another topic that you don't implement and don't change and keep going on in your comfort zone. But if you want something to change, we have to do something different, right? And that's what our hope for you and our prayer for you this week is, that you might decide that this week is the week I change something, right? And it doesn't have to be great, because you don't have to totally transform your life. You have to have an incremental gain, because when we have incremental gains is when we have exponential impact on our life. So think about where it is that you want to have some incremental gain this week. Maybe go to the journal to find those activities, and let us know how it's working out for you. And then we could catch up next week, and hopefully talk some more about how we continue to grow. And maybe next week we can talk about how we get into more of a command zone with the questions we asked, through the types of questions we ask. So thank you all for being with us. Matt and I appreciate it. We appreciate your confidence and your time. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care. God bless.